Hello, everybody. Welcome to another week of Showtime with Jordan von Haslow and friends on Hot 702.5 FM Las Vegas. Thank you so much for joining us. I am so happy. I have a really great friend here today. Fabulous singer, songwriter, producer, guitarist, Devin Tait, my friend Devin Tait. Thank you so much for joining us, Devin.
Oh, thank you so much for that amazing introduction. It's a very warm welcome for me, so thank you.
Well, you are very warmly welcome. I'm so happy to have you. For those who haven't heard, our listeners who haven't heard, so Devin is, like as I said, is a wonderful musician. And just this past Friday, he released his very first greatest hits collection, Recollection 2010 to 2020. And I've been like jamming to it all week. And I think it's really cool because it's not just your typical greatest hits where it's like, let's recycle a bunch of things that we've, already released and put them together. Like you re-recorded a lot of the tunes.
Yeah, so I'd say the majority of the material was re-recorded. So it's a little silly for me to be having a greatest hits album, but really what it is, it's kind of a re-presentation of some of the music I've done over the years, that I felt I could bring up to a higher level or a better level, kind of polish them up. So I wanted to present it like kind of in the definitive versions.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, I think it's like wonderful. Like I said, I've been jamming. So now what's available? So it's available everywhere for stream. As far as streaming is concerned, it's available everywhere where you get your streams, right? So Spotify,
Yes.
Apple Music, Deezer, where else do the kids?
Yeah,
Amazon.
yeah, and I think it's on YouTube, or it will be soon, like as
Yeah,
audio.
it is on YouTube. I caught it on YouTube. But more wonderful than that, and this is what I love you, is that you're still like an old school music lover like me. The physical copy is a 2-disc collection, right? So it's more than just what's on the streaming, right?
Yes, so it's kind of a collector's item. I wanted to, reward the people that still, value physical media. So it's a 2 CD set. The second CD is the rarities. So those are B-sides and unreleased tracks, and there's a demo on there. So it's a lot of stuff that's not available elsewhere. And it's only available on that physical package, which is on my website, devintait.com, and it's also on Bandcamp. devintait.bandcamp.com.
Okay, awesome. We'll definitely link it to our site as well. Like I said, I've been just jamming to it all weekend, and I guess revisit, because you and I have known each other for what, maybe 5 or 6 years now.
Yeah.
And this goes back 10 years. But like you've been making music longer than that. I know you had your punk band right before you. Like some of this is what does like this particular decade is like 2010, like when you started really working on your own stuff as a solo artist?
So I had always been in bands before that, and in 2010 is when I left my band that I had been in for about 10 years. So that was the first time I started writing.
Glitter, right?
Yes.
I think it's the greatest name in the history of like show business.
Shit and Glitter. Yeah, we love the name. I was told by Fred Schneider from the B-52s that we should probably change it because it doesn't have much commercial value. He said, you can't get played on the radio with that name. And I said, well, Fred, I don't think we're going to be played on the radio anyway.
Well, I want to know about your musical journey, because I think that it's really interesting. Because you started in a wonderful place called Paradise, Kansas, right? That's Paradise, right? I think that that's so fascinating because like me, myself, like I've always lived in like large cities. Like I grew up in Chicago. And so I always wonder, and grew up always, like where there's somewhere where there was a really big art scene and entertainment scene, you know what I mean? So just growing up, there was opera and theater and, multiple top 40 radio stations and concert, everyone who you'd want to see came through town. So I've always fascinated like people who are artists and who maybe grow up in some place that isn't LA, right? And like, how do you make that journey? Like, like did coming here, was that kind of like, I want to go to LA and become a rock star? Or was it like, I want to go to LA and get the hell out of the Midwest? Or was it?
It was definitely equal parts of that. But you know, growing up in a small town, even though, you know, obviously we didn't have like, things like a theater or, you know, an orchestra or anything like that. But, you know, I was active in our 4-H club, and 4-H really put an emphasis on music. So we always had a choir. We always participated in like the, you know, 4-H singing competition. And also at church, you know, we were a church going family. So I was singing in the choir and singing in the holiday shows and in Sunday school. So there always was music, you know, around and available and part of everything that we did. But I think, you know, moving to LA is when it became much more of a commercial, you know, like a something that I wanted to be a part of as far as being in sort of an industry. So it's like kind of the, you know, LA is like a good example of where art and commerce meet. So there's a lot of good energy around that.
Totally. So how did LA become like, was LA always on the radar versus say New York? Or I know a lot of people from like Midwest go to Chicago first and just, you know, because it's the big city, the biggest city, you know, like how did LA come about?
So it's kind of funny. I was working as a night clerk at Days Inn Hotel in Hays, Kansas. And I was there from 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. So I had a lot of time to fill. And I would just look at the road atlas and kind of study maps of different states and different places, you know, kind of thinking of little trips I'd want to take or places I wanted to visit. And when I looked up Southern California and specifically Los Angeles, I suddenly realized that all these places I had heard about growing up, Beverly Hills, Burbank, Venice Beach, Santa Monica, West Hollywood, they were all part of LA. And I had no idea until then. I thought these were all separate places that were spread out throughout California. So when I realized that they're all part of LA, I thought, well, that's where I have to go because everything is there.
I love. So was it a spur of the moment thing, or was it like a very planned thing, or was it like, hey, mom, dad, guess what? Deuces, I'm out.
No, it was definitely planned for about 3 years from the time I started kind of taking it seriously to the time I moved here. And basically my parents just said I had to finish college. So I was, you know, in college at that time. And I think it took 3 years to finish to get to the point where I met that requirement. And my parents did drive me and my brother out to LA once about a year before, just to like make sure that was really what we wanted to do. You know, I think they were trying to show us how it wasn't what we wanted to
There
do.
you straight. They're like, look, it's like first stop Skid Row, next stop.
Yeah, and my dad had got like a map that was like one of those picture type maps. It was like a cartoon drawing. So to actually try to navigate around LA with that was so frustrating. But I think that even might have been on purpose to try to make us think it was more frustrating than it really was.
Were you playing in bands in Kansas, or did you really start playing in bands once you came to Los Angeles?
No, we had a band in Kansas. So actually, when I was in high school, I auditioned for a band. And my audition piece, I played the Under the Sea from The Little Mermaid. And this was for like a rock band. So I was totally sure that they were going to laugh me out of the room and be like, never come back. But they loved it. And they said, we would love to have you be our keyboard player. And at that age, I was too nervous and shy, and I actually turned it down. I just said, I don't know, I made up some excuse because I really never thought they would let me in the band anyways. So I wasn't prepared for the actually being in one. But then a few years later, my brother and I started our first band. So that was...
And that band was Nickelback. But you you dodged a bullet.
Oh gosh. No, we were trying to be more like Marilyn and Manson and Nine Inch Nails. Not that I had any interest in those bands, but that's what my brother and the other guys in the band listened to. So we were kind of trying to be industrial goth, like rock.
How fun. That's so cool. So you guys come out here. And so tell me about how did Shitting Glitter? So were you here for a while before Shitting Glitter happened, or did you have some
I was here a little while. So I kind of like, you know, it took me a while to get my bearings and make friends and kind of know the lay of the land. So, you know, initially I kind of had this idea that I might be in sort of a boy band or something, because those were still kind of popular by the time I got to LA in the year 2000. And so I did take, like, I took funk and hip hop dance class at Learning Tree University, and I was trying to like learn guitar a little bit, and I was working on my harmonies and singing. And then about a year after I moved here, I had started doing karaoke. So that's really where I met like my first kind of group of other friends who like to sing and like to perform. And so three of us that, often met at karaoke decided that we would just become a band so we could be on stage and sing our own songs rather than, singing Melissa Etheridge and the Go-Go's.
And that band was Shitting Glitter?
Yes, yeah. So that was me and Amy Crosby and Vaughn Edwards. And at the time they were a couple. So I was kind of like the third wheel, but they liked having me around and I liked being the keyboard player. And we all got along really great for a long time.
How long were you guys together?
Well, so that iteration of the band with me, Amy, and Vaughn lasted from about 2001 until about 2002. So I guess it wasn't that long. so much happened in that one year that it feels like a long time, but it was actually pretty quick. And then the lineup changed several times before we kind of got to what I'd call the classic lineup, which was me and Amy Crosby, and then my brother Brandon joined. Brandon replaced Vaughn as the guitar player, and then my husband Dylan, at the time my boyfriend, was our drag queen go-go dancer.
How often were you guys playing? Like, so you had a full show, you had a go-go dancer, so you had like a full like kind of production happening.
Yeah, and a lot of times we had drummers that we would hire for certain gigs, depending on the venue. Sometimes we would have a fuller lineup of other musicians joining us, but we always have that core, and we played a lot. We basically, if somebody asked us to play, we would be there, whether it was a dive bar or a backyard or, whatever it was.
Yeah. What's your favorite of that time period, or just of the creative period of being a part of that band? Like, what's your favorite memory of that moment in your time period in your life?
Sure. The whole kind of year after we released our second album, which is Free Alongside Ship, we did a kind of a tour, kind of a piecemeal tour, because we obviously all still had day jobs, so we couldn't just take off for months, but we kind of planned it really strategically around different holiday weekends and vacation days that we could take. And I think probably the best memories are, we did go to Reykjavik, Iceland to play their Gay Pride Festival. That was probably the high point. And also we went to New York City and played the Queer Media and Entertainment Conference. So those were very like trips that kind of defined, my experience in the band, and kind of were the, just the best times that I remember.
Yeah. So so how did the Shitting Glitter era come to an end?
Yeah, well, it was very, unfortunately, it was a very rocky kind of ending period of about 2 years for me, from 2008 when my brother left the band. And then we had an all-female lineup except for me. So I really did love it. It was my Satisfaction starring Justine Bateman moment. Because I always kind of wanted to be the lone male in an all-girl band after I saw that movie. So I had that wish fulfilled for a little while, but that was, that was about the time when I was starting to think, maybe they should just be an all-girl band, and they'll have that'll be really cool for them. And I thought it would be a great direction for Shitting Glitter to go in. And then that kind of would free me up to do what I wanted to do.
Yeah. Is that weird though? Because I mean, you like started Shitting Glitter. Is that weird to kind of like because I know myself, I'm very like protective and like territorial. Like, is that weird to like, oh, here's something that I like not only created, but like I've honed for like almost a decade now. Here you go. Take it.
For sure. Yeah, it was definitely a hard decision. It definitely took a long time for me to even come to a place where I could think of that, think of leaving that behind. But it was because I really did trust the lineup that had, conglomerated by that point, the all-girl lineup. They were, really bright, smart, passionate young women, and I just thought they kicked a lot of ass. And so for me, it was kind of like I wanted to move out of that spotlight so they could have that spotlight. But then there were also obviously other things where I had gotten burnt out on certain things, and there was some frictions, between Amy and I at that point. having worked together for so long together, and then kind of having to weather the breakup of her and my brother, because by that time they were a couple. Which is why he ended up leaving the band when their relationship ended. So that was a very tumultuous time.
Yeah. Oh, and that just dawned on me, because being in a band is like a marriage in itself, and it's like here you now have like your work wife and your brother, like.
Yeah, it all became very, very kind of too close for comfort at some points. And it's just a lot of emotion then involved, and like a lot of just kind of thinking that we're kind of stuck into this like situation now, and it's really hard to kind of go different directions when you kind of got set in your ways together.
Totally. So once you left that band, like, were you consistently still writing, and were you gigging on your own, or were you just kind of like in this kind of place where you're just kind of creatively regrouping, and like what was next?
I turned it around pretty quickly because I had actually kind of already started writing my own stuff, even at the end of my period in Shit and Glitter. And I had also joined another band by that point, Invisible Material, and I played drums in that band. So that was a whole kind of new thing for me. I wasn't necessarily a drummer before, but I thought, well, I've always programmed like electronic drums, so I understand the basics behind, how drums work and like how rhythms work. It was just a matter of taking that physically. And so I did take some lessons from Alexa Brinkschult, who was actually the drummer that joined Shit and Glitter on stage for most of the gigs that I had played with the band, during the times when we would have a drummer. So I really looked to her to kind of give me a crash course in playing drums. But I think that experience of being a drummer and kind of being like not musically as involved in the band, I didn't have to think about what key is the song in, what notes are these. I just played the beats. But it definitely gave me a whole new perspective on how music is formed and how to think about the performance and the live show and the recording process.
Totally. How many instruments do you play? So with that said, I feel like you play all of them.
I try to dabble in everything. I love to just try to get something to make a sound, right? So primarily I play keyboard and a little piano. I have been learning how to play guitar, so I'm definitely not a guitar player, but I can do the basic chords, I used to play the oboe. That was my instrument all through junior high and high school. I wish I could still play it, but I'm sure my embouchure has been, is not up to par for oboe playing yet or anymore.
How did you get into the oboe? This is so random. I just remember like taking band when I was in junior high school. I played the saxophone because, of course, it was the 80s, like,
right?
Saxophone. And we had the one lone oboe player, Diane, and I would always sit there in rehearsal looking at her thinking like, before I came to this, I had no idea what the hell an oboe was. So like, how did you remotely even say, I know I want to learn?
Yeah. Well, it's funny because our school didn't even have an oboe. So it was kind of, somebody tried to talk me out of it, and that was the band teacher, because I think she didn't want to have to go try to hunt down an oboe. But the whole way that
teach you how to play it.
Right? The whole way I even stumbled upon it was an accident, because as a young boy, I think we were in 4th grade, and they took us up to the middle school to kind of introduce us to the concept of the school band and like get us thinking about what we might want to play if we were to join the school band the next year. And there was, as a young boy, there was all these different girls that I had befriended from, basketball games and, cheerleaders that I talked to a lot. And so there was one girl that I had become friendly with, and I thought that I saw her playing the oboe when we went to watch them play that day. I don't know why I thought that, because she actually played the clarinet. But for some reason, I thought she played the oboe, and I thought that I wanted to play that. So they first tried to give me a French horn, which was terrible. My parents were not happy with me trying to play a French horn in the house. And then they gave me a piccolo, but this bully on the school bus stole it from me and used it to shoot spit wads at me. So I took it back the next day, and I'm like, I'm not putting my mouth on this thing. Like, you don't know where it's been. So she finally, after that, she's like, okay, I will find an oboe for you.
So you were bullied into playing the oboe.
Pretty much, yeah. But that's what I wanted. So it kind of is a rare instance where the bullying worked in my favor.
Oh my God, I love that. So like, what's your process? Like you write all of your songs and you produce most of them as well, right?
I have generally produced all my stuff. Lately I've been working with a producer to really do the mixing and stuff. And that's his stage name, or whatever you want to call it, is Little Pioneer. So he's based in New York City, and I actually found him through Wendy Ho because he produces Wendy Ho's stuff.
Okay.
So when I initially asked Wendy to collaborate with me, I thought it would probably be a better chance that she would say yes if I told her I was working with her producer, so that she would have that confidence that, okay, it's going to sound the way the level that she wants it to be at. And I've just, since working with him, he's just like the easiest person to work with. He's like so quick and courteous and professional, and he always knows like what I'm trying to describe with my words. He can translate it into like the sound that I'm wanting to get.
Yeah, that's cool. And as far as like the writing process, what's your writing process? Is it start with the melody? Does it start with the lyrics? Does it start with the beat and you top line over it? What's your process as far as writing?
Generally, I usually start with like part of the lyric, or like the concept of what the song is going to be about, or what the lyrics are going to be about. And I usually get like a title or like kind of a chorus line, in my head first. And then I try to kind of build it around that. So typically that's how it happens. And then I'll, maybe start at the piano and kind of figure out what chords I think are going to be in it. And then that can change a lot from the actual recording process when I start messing with what different sounds I want to use, what different synthesizers, what type of drum sounds I want. And sometimes I'll get almost done with the song and I'll decide, oh, that's totally the wrong style. And like, I want to do this in acoustic style, or I want to do this more with a dance beat or something. So the process can, it can change a lot through the process too.
Yeah. So post Shit and Glitter, you're with Invisible Minds?
Invisible Material.
So talk to me about that, because no, Shit and Glitter was like I should turn this into a drinking game of how many times I can say shit and glitter. I was actually thinking about that because I was working on the video, and that we'll talk about a little later, but the video for the single of your new album. And Jeremy, who did my costume, there's glitter over everything. And I thought about it because once we finished recording, I looked down, literally the bed was just covered, and I thought about it. But
yes. Yeah. Well, I'm definitely no stranger to that type of situation.
But so tell me about Invisible Minds, because Shit and Glitter was like punk, like glam punk. What was Invisible Minds as far as stylistically?
So Invisible Material was very much a
Material.
Broy.
I'm sorry, I keep saying that.
It was a very broy, masculine broy garage rock band. So it was totally different, completely different vibe, totally different sound. And because of that, it was a really great outlet for me, because, there was a lot of feminine energy in Shit and Glitter, because Amy was the driving force, lyrically, and she was the front woman. And, we almost always had other women in the lineup, whether they were playing guitar or drums or bass, whatever. And I remember we played at Santa Barbara Pride one time, and one of the bands that played after us was a 4-piece all male band. And I thought, oh, that testosterone filled energy must be like amazing to be a part of, like I was kind of in my 20s, in my sexual prime. And I'm like, oh, I think it'd be fun to be in an all male band. So, it was actually my brother had kind of started helping the singer Robin Hall. I don't know if you know Robin, but he is a force of nature. And so he's a New Zealander. He's a personal trainer. So he has a great body, 6-pack abs, everything. And he was he at the time, hopefully he doesn't get mad at me for telling this story, but at the time he was a go-go dancer at the West Hollywood clubs. So I had heard about him through my brother, so I knew of him, and my brother had mentioned like, oh, you might want to come play drums for us, just jam and see how it goes. And then I went to Foo Bar, and there was a dancer, and I went up and I tipped him, and I kind of had my hand on his abs, and I said, what's your name? And he's like, Robin. And I was like, oh, shoot, I was like, oh, you're Robin. I've been wanting to meet you because you're singing with my brother. My brother's playing guitar for you, and I might come play drums for you. And he was so nice, so gracious, for considering that beginning that we had. So then, yeah, we got a bass player then. So we were a 4-piece, and we, our songs were really loud and fast, and sometimes my arm would like not be able to keep up. But it was a lot of fun. We played quite a few really fun gigs.
I did meet Robin because you guys did like a reunion show in Hollywood, like on like a soundstage or something in Hollywood.
Yes. So Ryan, our mutual friend Ryan Newcomb, he we kind of decided to do a reunion because we had we kind of ended the band at some point quite a while ago. It kind of just fizzled out. Everybody got busy with other things they were doing, and Robin got married and he's a dad now. So but at some point we said, well, let's just get back together for fun. And Ryan had been playing the bass. He had learned how to play the bass. So he and I had played a couple of things together just for fun. And I said, well, hey, would you be interested in jamming with Invisible Material? I'm pretty sure he had seen us, back in the day. So it was just like a perfect fit, and the stars kind of aligned, and we did that one show, and then we haven't played since then. But it was nice to bring it forward into the new era.
Yeah. Oh, how fun. So now when you and I first met and became friends, you had a band, the Traders, Devin Tait and the Traders. So were you doing that simultaneously with Invisible? Why do I keep wanting to say Invisible Minds? Invisible material? Or like, did that like one thing kind of end and the next thing started?
Well, I think that, initially I was just a solo artist, when I released the first album, and I was in Invisible Material. And then I really, started the Traders as like a way to be able to play live, rock clubs and stuff. I didn't want to just be like a person singing to like a track or whatever.
Right.
So, my brother had obviously been in every band I've been in with me. So it was just natural that, he would play guitar for me. And then I got a keyboard player, Eileen, I think she actually wanted to go by Chin Chin. But so she
like the restaurant.
Oh, it's like Xin.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I think that's how you pronounce it. But we played quite a few gigs together in that lineup, and we had Dolly Dagger, who's my sister-in-law, and she's a burlesque artist, but she would kind of join. She would sing and dance and kind of be some visual va-va-voom for the stage show. And then eventually I had been friends with Miles Matisse for many, many years, and I can't remember if I told him he should play the drums or if he said he wanted to play the drums, but I basically told him I want him to be my drummer. But he had to kind of learn how to play the drums because he had never done that before. So it took about a year before he finally was ready to come to a rehearsal and jam with us. So then once we had Miles, and the lineup morphed a couple more times, and eventually it was Brandon, Miles, and then I had Jared, my friend Jared, and Liana Hernandez were my co-vocalists. So we played, for several years in that lineup, and we had a lot of fun. And I think that probably was part of the natural end of Invisible Material, because I was, focusing more on the Traders once they kind of became a full-fledged band.
Yeah, and that really kind of was like, because it seems, and maybe I'm wrong, but it seems like prior to the Traders, like you said, your colleague in Shit and Glitter, she was really the driving force musically. It seems like Robin was very much a driving force. It seems like Traders was really like kind of you artistically, really kind of like driving and moving it forward.
Yeah, I mean, my whole life I had always been a band member, and I was, very much enjoyed being a band member, and I was very good at it too, because I thought that, I was pretty, I was able to observe what the person driving the band, what their vision was and what they wanted it to sound like, and I tried to follow that vision rather than trying to say, well, I think we should go off in this other direction. I think you're stronger collectively if you can, feel free to speak your mind and be able to input ideas, but to also realize that there should be one kind of driving vision and direction that you're all heading in together. And I had enjoyed that for many, many years. But I think through that process, I watched it and I kind of in the back of my mind thought, well, if it was me, I might do it this way. And if I was like calling the shots, I would probably make this decision. So naturally, at some point, I just wanted to put that to the test and see if I, really had learned enough and absorbed enough and had my own vision, which was really the biggest thing. Is I didn't want to try to be a solo artist if I didn't even feel like I knew what my voice was. So that took really probably a couple years to kind of even find that voice and decide what I wanted to say and what I wanted to represent. Because coming from, something like Shit and Glitter was supposed to be outrageous and provocative and, kind of like pushing the envelope. And I had to kind of decide, do I want to do that? Is that who I am? Or do I want to be a little more like, maybe a little more chill, maybe a little like, let's like try to think of like what people want to hear and like kind of put my spin on that.
I think it's amazing that your brother has been there the entire way. And now this is the dynamic that I don't understand because I'm an only child. I only see people with their siblings, and oftentimes there's like animosity between siblings, but it seems like you and your brother guys have kind of just been like these like two amigos like for this entire journey.
Well, and it was really only because of music that we became like that. So, when we were like little kids, we were like, we were good pals and whatever. But then as we grew up and went to school, we kind of got our own friends and we had separate friend groups and we kind of developed separate interests. And I was always interested in music and, I was always in the band and the choir. And my brother was definitely more of a typical Midwestern boy, like he liked to do sports and, go chasing animals and like, get dirty and things like that. So, for, most of the time that we were in school together, we weren't particularly close. We didn't hang out a lot. We didn't have a lot of similar interests. But when he was, when he got older, like, maybe 16, 17, and he really started getting into music, even though he listened to different bands and musicians than I did, we both kind of had that passion. Like we would go to record stores together and he would go to his section and I would go to mine, but we would both like dig through the CDs and like we'd buy like, 4 different CDs and then we kind of take turns listening to them on the drive home or whatever. So at some point I bought a guitar with the intention of I was going to learn it because I thought that's how you had to be a rock star, right? You had to learn how to play guitar. And I bought it, but for some reason,
with the oboe.
Right? I literally sold the oboe. I literally sold it and then bought the guitar. But I decided that I didn't have time right then to learn it, but I didn't want it to just sit there collecting dust. So I went and I gave it to my brother. At this time, I had moved out of the house and he still lived with mom and dad. He was still in high school. And so I took him this guitar and I said, here's the guitar, learn how to play it. And I'm going to come pick it back up again in like 3 months or something. And that became his first guitar. And he ended up becoming a guitar player. And I never did until recently. I started trying to learn it. But so I think what it was is I had always wanted to be involved in music and be a musician, but I think I just didn't have the confidence really to like be able to put myself out there in that way to say I'm in a rock band. Like I thought, who am I to say like I'm a rock and roll person? I had always been kind of like a nerd, kind of like a goody.
An oboe player.
Yeah, I was exactly, I was like definitely, like teacher's pet type, like was not rebellious at all, right? And rock and roll is all about rebellion. But I think Brandon, having the balls to say, well, I want to write songs and sing them and I'll play the guitar and then you can play the keyboards. And I ended up playing the drums on the keyboard because we couldn't find a drummer, right? So I played the drums on the keyboard and then we had a guitar player and a bass player. And, I think that built up my confidence of being able to be on stage. And it took a long time for me to feel comfortable enough on stage that I would ever want to even sing backup vocals, right? Like that took years and years. And that only really happened because in Shit and Glitter, when Amy and Vaughn broke up and Brandon replaced Vaughn, I kind of saw it as my like I was next in line to do the harmonies because Vaughn was the whole band started because Amy and Vaughn would sing these amazing harmonies together and Vaughn would play the guitar. It was very Indigo Girls, right? When they started, they would literally go to softball games, lesbian softball games, and they would sit like in the corner on the grass and play the guitar, and people started paying attention to them, and like people started kind of saying, oh, when are you guys going to play a gig? So they had kind of started calling themselves Short Haired Girls Club after a song of the same title. And I just kind of weaseled my way into their thing. I was like, hey, do you guys need a keyboard player?
I love it. So going back to the Traitors, so did the Traitors officially dissolve, or did you, because I feel like when I first met you, you guys were playing all the time. I feel like I went to see you guys all. Like, did you guys like officially dissolve, or is it just
kind of what happened was, initially the Traitors was never meant to be a thing. It was just meant to be like a name that I could say the people playing on stage with me are, right? Because it was, I was like a solo artist, but I wanted to have like a band. And then when they really became a band, then it kind of, we got back into that band dynamic where there was, personality disputes and schedules, crazy schedules. I would say, oh, we have a gig this day, can we rehearse this day, or that day? And I'd get emails back from everybody and nobody would be available at the same time. So there was a lot of logistic issues. And then really what kind of ended up ending that lineup was that Liana ended up having to move. She moved to Texas. She got a job there. And so she, it was really time for her to kind of move up in her career. So she had this opportunity to move to Austin. And I just thought, I don't really have it in me to try to like find a new replacement for Liana. And I thought, I'm going to take the opportunity to kind of take a step back from the band again and like really try to do my own thing again. So that was like a concerted effort to change it from the Traitors back into just me as a solo artist.
Just you as a solo artist. Well, okay, one more band question, then I want to talk about you as a solo artist, because, and I never got a chance to see you guys perform. Like, I feel like every time I would, like, something would happen and I couldn't come. But let's talk about Boinanarama.
Oh, yes. The Boinanarama is still an ongoing entity. We have not, done anything for a little while, but that doesn't mean that we're not still together. We're always available for gigs. We do appreciate paid gigs because it is a lot of work. But basically the way that started was I had gone to see this cover band, a Queen tribute called Queen Nation. I'd actually seen them a couple of times, but we drove out to see them at a festival. And it was just so impressive that they could, take Queen's music and like really keep it true to Queen, but really make the performance their own. Like they owned it on stage. When you were watching them, you were like totally into what they were doing and not thinking about the fact that they're a cover band or not thinking about the fact that they're trying to like play as a different band. It was just like a great experience. Cause obviously I was never lucky enough to see Queen and you can't see them now. But to be able to bring that energy of a band like Queen, in the year 2017 was just really great. And I thought, well, if I was going to do that, I also have to give credit to my friend Christopher Freeman from the band Pansy Division, because he has a band called GayCDC, and they take all of AC/DC songs and they translate them in a very gay, like a very sex positive gay environment without even hardly having to change anything about the songs, right? Like we've got big balls, like they don't have to change that at all to make it gay. So after seeing him and Queen Nation, I thought, well, what would I do? Because I'm more in the pop realm and there's not a lot of pop cover bands. Usually there's like rock cover bands like Led Zeppelin and the Beatles. All those bands have tributes. But I thought, well, Bananarama is like as pop as you can possibly get. And wouldn't it be funny if we did it instead of 3 girls, 3 guys, but do the same songs? And happened to be that I had a big milestone birthday rapidly approaching. So I just decided I'm going to put together like my dream band of like the musicians I would most want to perform with and do Bananarama songs, but as a 3-piece male with like a kind of a rock band behind them. So that was the initial idea.
Yeah, that's so fun. Yay.
Yeah, It's so much fun. We love it. And we do the choreography. You know, Jared Millsap, who was also in the Traders, is, you know, he's a performer and he's a dancer. So that was something that, you know, we never really got to explore in Devin Tait and the Traders that I really wanted to, because he has this experience and this, you know, he's such a great, you know, he can really look at the whole show as visually from like the audience, which I always imagine performing from myself outward. I never stopped to really think about what it looks like from the audience. So he was great at always reminding me like, hey, there's an audience looking at you. You have to think about that. You have to do something that they're going to want to look at. So we did try to do a little choreography in Devin Tait and the Traders for the Now I Know What I Want video, which turned out kind of disastrous. If you watch that video, you'll see. So I told him,
which is like the greatest Tait and the Traders song in the world, by the way.
Thank you.
That's like such an awesome song.
And it's a brand new version on the new CD.
And I love the new version. But I think it's like without the, I think it's that's like a great song. But nevertheless, keep going.
But yeah, so I told Jared I want choreography for Bananarama, but I want it to be really easy. Like I don't want it to be something that we're going to screw up or forget or not be able to pull off. Like, because my husband Dylan is also in the band with us. And so, you know, we wanted to keep it at and because really that's what Bananarama is about too, right? They weren't trained singers. They weren't trained dancers. Their dance moves are all very easy and basic, and they kind of laugh them off, and they just really have a fun time doing it. So that's what we try to do with Bananarama. We just try to go out there and have a fun time and not act like we're any different or better than anybody else there. We want everybody to sing along, but we're the ones willing to make fools of ourselves up there doing the dance moves, wearing the tight silver shorts.
Well, it's all great fun. So what to do now? Like I'm having all these conversations with, like I was chatting with Wendy Ho yesterday or the day before yesterday. And, you know, everyone who works in live entertainment's kind of like in this place of like, okay, so now what? You know, how do we adapt, not only, you know, continue to earn a living, but, you know, continue to be creative when there isn't necessarily the audience and all of that. And like here you are releasing this double CD collection. How have you, well, tell me this, did the idea to release this album happen pre-shutdown or post-shutdown?
It was definitely post-shutdown. It was very much a project of the COVID pandemic, of having so much time sitting at home, trying to think of what can I do to be productive. And, you know, like a lot of people, I wasn't feeling creative. I didn't have any words coming to my mind. I didn't have anything I wanted to say, because it was kind of just like living day to day, trying to figure out what is happening and what's going on. But what I did have is I had a lot of my old songs that I thought, well, I don't have to reinvent these. I don't have to reinvent the wheel. I could just polish these songs up and really finish them in a way that I want to, and add things. You know, I've been performing some of these songs for, 10 years. So they've kind of changed and morphed throughout that time. So I thought, well, what if I kind of updated them to sound more like what it sounds like now when I perform live? And it is kind of such a funny time that now we can't really perform live. But luckily what I've found is that like turning to virtual shows and doing live streams, and I have to give some credit to Nikki Tedesco. She's an amazing female musician. She's a bass player, but she's a solo artist too. She just released her album, Heaven is a Ghost Town. And she is kind of like, has become a pro at doing these live streams. And what she does is she teaches people how to play bass. So she'll perform her songs, but she'll also tell people, get out your guitar, get out your bass, get out your keyboard, and we're going to learn this song together. We're going to learn this riff together. And I thought, you know what? I also, ever since I was a little
brilliant, because she's basically teaching them her song. So it's not only that's brilliant.
Yeah, no, she is brilliant. She puts the QR code so people can scan and tip her. She makes it really easy, and she always tells people you don't have to tip, but if you want to, here's how to do it. And people end up tipping her just because they really appreciate what she's bringing into the internet. Like the virtual reality, to actually have a female musician trying to help other people out and get other people into music. Rather than just saying I'm the musician and you're the audience. She's trying to get people to be part of it. So she really has helped me kind of find my voice on live streams. And what I like about live streams is that you can do a mix of live performance, talking, but also showing videos. I have so many music videos that I love that I've made over the years that a lot of people just haven't seen. You know, they haven't taken the time to go type my name into YouTube. So if I can like kind of slip a video in here and there and get people to watch it, then it's, you know, it's just, it's a lot actually more fun for me now that I've figured out that, you know, me going out to a bar and playing a song and trying to get people's attention when they're out to have a good time and talk to their friends is so much different than, you know, people that know me going onto my live stream to watch me and comment and be part of the conversation in a much more casual way. And I can incorporate comedy and other things in it too.
Yeah, but and that's really the thing, right? The shift that we're going through. You talk about being a part of the conversation. Like I feel as though, and this has been a long time coming, what with the internet and with social media, but there's like a paradigm shift to where, you know, sort of like you were speaking about working with Jared, and you said, you know, you've always kind of just thought about your performance from the inside out and not necessarily from the outside in. And I feel like we're going through this paradigm shift where moving forward, it's always going to have to be about a dialogue versus I'm the performer here on stage. You shut up and listen to me and you applaud when I'm done. Like, I feel like that's kind of just where we're going, period. And like that old method of how we thought about this is what a performance is. This is, you know, the audience's, this is the service agreement between the audience and the performer. That old way is like gone and will never be around again.
Yeah, that's really insightful. And it's true because now everybody has their own brand, right? Everybody has their social media and they want to portray themselves as the star of their own life. So people have this new expectation that they do want that back and forth. They don't just want to, you know, be an audience for somebody else. So I learned that, you know, through doing live casts that, you know, the first couple times I did it, I again was looking at it going from me out. And I was performing without interacting with people. I would read the comments later. You know, I didn't really know what was happening on screen. And part of it was just my nerves, right? Like I had not really performed in a virtual setting. It's a lot easier to read the room when you can actually see the people in the room with you. So it took me a while to like learn that when you're doing a live cast, you got to be able to comment in real time when people say something. They want you to acknowledge it and have a conversation with them. And the more you do it, the quicker you can become and the more people you can have that with. You know, you can actually be talking to 20 or 30 people and still somehow make everybody feel that you're hearing them and responding to them. And it's definitely an art and a skill. And that's what I'm trying to work on is that skill, because it's a whole different skill set from, you know, what I've been used to in the last 30 years of going and playing in a bar or a traditional venue.
No, totally. Do you think I've been having this conversation with other performers? Like, do you think that even, you know, like once, you know, the world is reopened again, there's a vaccine, and do you think that the traditional concert space, whether that be like, you know, like folks who fill arenas or folks who play clubs and bars, do you think that the traditional performance is going to change at all in terms of just how it's presented and what it looks like? Or do you think it'll be more interactive? Do you think?
It's so hard to even like imagine because, you know, like kind of the optimist who wants to kind of cling to the traditional way of it would think maybe people are going to be so starved for live music experiences that maybe people will have a new appreciation for that. But on the other hand, I know a lot of musicians that are saying, I don't want to go back to, you know, playing in a bar, having to beg all my friends to come out. You know, they all pay for overpriced drinks and then I'm lucky if I get a free drink or a small cut of it, when I can just do a show in my living room and accept tips. And, you know, it's definitely a much more comfortable way to do it. But I do hope that there's some sort of, you know, reappreciation for the live music. So maybe people will be more selective about what they go see, but I still think that live music is going to thrive, you know, especially from artists that we've loved for our whole lives that we just want to see again.
Yeah, totally. Well, I'm so, like I said, I've been jamming to Recollection all weekend and I'm loving it. And I'm
Thank
loving,
you.
like, I think you're such an amazing songwriter. I think I think and I think it sounds so now when we listen to, because you have a very specific, I think you're very much drawn to a very specific sound and a very specific
Sure.
era. And just, you know, and listening to a lot of what's out now, like Dua Lipa's new music. And like, I feel like everything you're doing feels so now, but at the same time feels fabulously nostalgic as someone who grew up in a certain time period. So I just think it's just really, really awesome. So
Thank you.
congratulations on a really wonderful collection.
Well, thank you. That means
Congrats.
a lot coming from you. I really respect you as a musician too. So,
Thank
yeah,
you.
and I think a lot of the credit is, you know, I worked with some co-producers, so they were able to kind of, you know, maybe look in a different direction than I would normally, as far as trying to make it sound a little more current, or not try to have such a retro vibe that sounds like something else, but something that sounds a little more modern. I know that was one of the instructions I would always tell Little Pioneer when he was mixing the songs on Recollection, is that try to not make this sound too 80s.
But still have enough of that to where it's like that,
Yeah.
you know, future nostalgia, as it were. And I
Yeah.
think that, like I said, that they're all, full disclosure audience, the last track on the first disc is a
Yes.
remix of a song that Devin wrote, and that I had the privilege. Devin's always like pulling me into these fun little projects. It's a song he wrote for Wendy Ho, who's amazing, and I did the bridge work. And I think, like, again, I've been jamming to it all. I have been listening to the whole thing. I haven't just been listening to the songs right before. But I have been listening, and I think it's like really amazing. So not to steamroll over your current release, which just came out, but so what's next on your, because you're someone who's always like just kind of creatively like looking and exploring.
Yeah.
Like, you started like kind of planting the seeds of like what you think is going to be the next thing you do.
Not really. I've kind of purposely not done that. You know, part of it is like I said, I'm not really having a very creative vibe right now. Like, it's more about survival and getting through this weird era that we're in. It's not, for whatever reason, it's just not inspiring me creatively. And plus, I have been going, you know, so hard at it for the last 20 years. You know, my goal really was to become, you know, a professional, like a big musician. And it's, you know, that takes a lot out of you to live that way every day, trying to open your email and hope that that next gig is there, that opportunity is there. So I think it's a natural time for me to kind of just take back and say, I don't have to try so hard. I'm proud of what I've accomplished. I've done it. I did it my way. I did it what I wanted to do. Recollection is really like the essence of what I am proud of. And so I'm just going to take it easy for a little while, and I'll continue doing my live streams. That's kind of where I'm putting my energy on now.
Awesome. So just so where can we find your live stream? What's your social handles?
Yeah, so I'm actually trying to navigate it all over to YouTube Live, because YouTube has a live feature now. And so if you have like an Apple TV or a Roku or whatever, you can just go to YouTube and you can watch live programming on there now. So I think that moving forward, it'll be on my YouTube Decadrisco channel, which is my record label. So it's youtube.com/Decadrisco, I don't even know how to spell it. DECADRICSO. But you can also just, you know, type Devin Tait in YouTube and it brings up my channel.
Awesome. And Recollections 2010 to 2020 can be streamed wherever you stream your music. It can be downloaded, Apple, Amazon, and you can get the collector's two-disc physical copy at devintait.com.
Exactly. Yes. Thank you. Thank you for helping me plug it.
Of course, it's my pleasure. Thank you. Thank you for allowing me to be a part of it. And I can't wait to see you like in person again soon, hopefully sometime before the year ends.
Yes, that would be much needed, a much needed reunion.
Indeed. Well, thank you again. And thank you all for joining us for this week's installment of Showtime with Jordan von Haslow and Friends on Hot 702.5 FM Las Vegas. We'll see you next week. Bye.